Good evening and welcome to Talk Gnosis. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about a subject which is probably heard in all of mainstream Christianity, through every religion in the world, and something that everybody preaches, and that is the subject of love. Good evening, Bishop Peterson. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you, Bishop Canterbury?
I'm doing really well.
Great.
Doing very well. Well, why don't we just dive right into this, because I know that this is going to probably take up all of this and then be crossing right over into our podcast.
Sure.
But I mean, let's face the facts. The Gospels and the Bible teaches that God is love.
Mm-hmm.
We hear the sayings about love all throughout Christianity. In fact, I think if we were to probably find a common thread through every world religion and prophet, we could probably say that love is that common thread.
Yes.
I think, the big question is, what role does it play in Gnosticism?
That is a big question. And in fact, I'm looking over some of the questions for this evening. We have a really pointed question that Brother Jonathan, our producer, brings up, and that is, in Christianity, we're supposed to be redeemed by love, but in Gnosticism, it's thought that salvation comes from gnosis. So is knowledge more important than love? And I think that's a really fascinating question. I have a response to that, but I'm wondering, Bishop Canterbury, if you want to start with anything.
Well, I've got my opinions.
Naturally, you always do.
Of course I do. And I'm just going to, come right out and say this, is that my opinions probably do not reflect those of classical Gnosticism, and maybe not even of other clergy. But I think that my opinion is probably a lot based upon my own experience, and my own experience, especially through that of initiatory orders.
Mm-hmm.
And so my particular flavor of Gnosticism is very much tied to initiatory systems and what they teach. And so ultimately for me, yes, love is the most important. I mean, in a nutshell, it all boils down to love. In fact, I think I made a post on that yesterday. Yesterday was my 30th anniversary within the Gnostic Church, and I put a quote in there from the Gospels, that the most important thing I've learned in 30 years of being a Gnostic is love. How does that relate to salvation through knowledge? Well, I think part of that divine knowledge that we are coming through is understanding love. Now love, let's face the facts, love is hard to define. Love, how do we even start defining love? Because when we start looking at the concepts of love, I mean, I think most of us will start thinking of things pretty much specifically within the material plane. Mm-hmm. Whether that is romantic love. Unfortunately, English has one word for love. We're not blessed with multiple words for love like some of the ancient languages had, or some of more modern languages have. But even I think most of our ideas of love, I think, can be limiting on how we try to define what love is. But can we even really define love?
When I got word of this topic, I went back into my files and I found a blog post that I wrote many years ago in response to a request from somebody in another forum about defining love. And it was written at one of the very worst periods of my life. And so there's a bit that I would have changed, that I would still change in the essay. But what I argued was that love was a desire for mutual knowledge. It's a desire to know the object of love and to be known by the object of love. And there's this desire to reveal oneself, the desire to know the other. And of course, if we're going to reveal ourselves, we also have to know ourselves. So in terms of my own Gnostic or religious practice, for me, love is, in many cases, the precursor to knowledge. It is that desire to seek after knowledge of God and people around me and the world around me, but also the desire to be known
Mm-hmm.
by others and God. So
Mm-hmm.
there is this kind of this. It's a mutuality for me. Love is.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's not so much that knowledge is trumping love, but that love is something that can be an incredibly powerful tool for achieving knowledge, achieving gnosis, understanding and knowing God. Because when we love somebody, first of all, we pay them attention. And if we
Mm-hmm.
look at what a lot of our spiritual practices are about, a lot of them require attention. And
Mm-hmm.
when you start doing them, it's very difficult because your attention is constantly wandering. But
Mm-hmm.
over time, with practice, that attention starts to focus. And with that focus, there is the increased desire. And I think that knowledge of the divine can actually come through that. And but then there's also with that the kind of knowledge that we pay it if we're paying attention in our spiritual exercises and disciplines, we know ourselves and are better able to express ourselves to the divine as well. So I would say that love is this precursor to gnosis. And it's a very essential precursor to gnosis. It's not a matter of trumping, but they're joined together.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Um, for me, love in many ways. I mean, we hear love not only in the Gospels, but I think there's, the concepts of love and even sex are mixed throughout
Yeah.
Gnostic texts. And but in many cases, I think what we're hearing there are simply metaphors for something that is, if anything, it should be putting us all in awe. You know, um, if I was going to try to define, I think love on this physical plane,
Mm-hmm.
is probably pretty close to the definition that you have just given. That is, in many ways, like, let's talk about my daughter, my child. My love for her means that I want the absolute best things for her in the world. It also, for me, would also entail things as my own sacrifice, whether it is, sacrifice of my time raising her as a parent, my time that I give to her whenever she has needed me, even sacrificing my life for her if that was the choice that I would have had to made. So there's that sacrifice element as well, but it is always wanting the best possibility for that person, regardless of what the outcome is, even if that means that doesn't include you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, I think, on the material plane is one of the ways that I would define love. But to me, that is still so limiting to what is here within our material physical universe. And I think love goes beyond that. One of my, I think, favorite concepts of love is sort of this concept of the essential being, the non-being, outside of space and time in the universe, who through his divine breath
Mm-hmm.
manifests, and that divine breath then fills every crevice and crack in the universe, and things start boom, 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 exploding with sparks in his divine energy. It is that process of creation. So, love, I think, and I think maybe that is why sometimes love and sex is kind of mixed together in many metaphors, is also sometimes involves that process of creation as well.
I think it certainly, yes, it absolutely certainly can involve that. And I think that for many people, creation is, of course, a form of self-expression. Not speaking sexually here, although it certainly can be. But
Mm-hmm.
when a person is creating art, or even when they're raising a child, you spoke about that. There is a sense
Mm-hmm.
of self-expression in that, which again indicates a willingness to be to be known by others, because there is that expression going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that certainly can be a very important part of that, is when you're revealing yourself through creation. And I think that's very important. Although one thing that, in classical Gnosticism, where you have this notion of the material world created by this demented demiurge, there's still the God above God.
Mm-hmm.
And the one question that our producer brought up was the issue of, can that God actually love us? Is that possible? Is it possible to love something, an entity that is alien in many ways?
Mm-hmm.
And is it possible for that entity, which is so massive and so unfathomable in our little minds, is that
Mm-hmm.
something? Is love there even possible?
Well, but don't you think we do see examples of that within Gnostic thought? I mean, the love of Sophia, towards the Christos, the love of even in more modern forms of worship. I think you see a lot of like Marian type prayers, a lot of the ideas of this divine love being manifest almost through this motherly divine feminine, which I think is kind of a reflection of Sophia and a reflection of Gnosis. So I would argue, yes, is that even though this is an alien God, back to the concept I said, this whole entire even idea of this breath, that has permeated everything in itself, I think, is an act of love. Very, very tough questions though, because there is so much. Okay, we're in the material universe. How do we feel about this? But yet, all throughout, Gnosticism, I think we see these concepts back and forth. One of the show notes in here that I think that most Gnostics are common with is the idea that Valentinus was very big on the concept of love, and that many in the modern Gnostic communities believe that Valentinus is the Saint Valentine.
Yep.
Which is definitely tied into the ideas of love. Just how about the ideas of loving our neighbors, spouses? What does this all mean? Those kind of concepts, permeate, I think, mainstream Christianity. But what do they really mean for us Gnostics?
Well, I think that one thing that Gnostics are attempting to do is to wake up. We want knowledge. We want that experience of gnosis. We want to wake up, and we want to be able to, among other things, see the world around us and the world systems as they really are, as we try and journey our way out and through it into becoming what humankind actually could potentially be. And for me, you mentioned, you were talking about parents and neighbors and spouses and whatnot. There's this process, I think, that's oftentimes essential in developing love, and that is of disillusionment. And that may sound kind of depressing, but I think it's absolutely essential to developing that kind of reciprocal knowledge of somebody. We in romantic relationships, we oftentimes go in with stars in our eyes, so to speak, but then we discover that this individual has, feet of clay like the rest of us. And there's that process of disillusionment, but marriage therapists will tell you that that's a healthy part of normal marriages. When the disillusionment happens, after that, there's a rebuilding of the relationship based on common knowledge and trust and reciprocity. Same thing happens with parents and their children. You give birth to this tiny defenseless baby. Your body's primed with hormones. You're all excited. You can imprint an awful lot on that baby. And the baby will, it can project a lot onto you as well. And over time, you and the baby grows into a child, and you begin to learn that you're not, the baby learns that you are not the fount of all wisdom and knowledge and everything good, and you learn that the baby has its own personality and needs, and there's a process of disillusionment there. But again, in a healthy relationship where there's love, a desire to know and be known, parent and child can come to a relationship that's based on honesty and revelation and appreciation of the uniqueness and individuality of each other. So I would say for Gnostics, we can take the disillusionment aspect and apply that very much to our spiritual paths, because at some point, I think most of us on this path become disillusioned with the world around us. We see that that neither side, if we were looking at a political issue or whatever, that neither side is offering real answers. We see that different philosophies and theories around us, ways of going about things, just aren't working, and we yearn for something different, something outside this highly oppressive empire that we live under. So I would say that that's something that Gnostics can take from ordinary relationships and apply to their relationship with the divine.
Well, I think these are all great concepts that we're definitely going to have to continue on Talk Gnosis After Dark, our podcast, which we will be continuing this discussion right after the show. I would like to hear thoughts from our viewers on this. To get an audience response, either on our Facebook page or right here on YouTube in the comments. I would like to hear their thoughts and their importance of how they feel love plays on the Gnostic path. And then really any other experience they have for love is really related to Gnosticism. Since I mentioned our viewers, I would also like to point out that if you've enjoyed our show and if you find it helpful, please consider, supporting us and our show by visiting Patreon and becoming a supporter by going to patreon.com/Gnostic. And that directly supports this program and the development of other programs within our network. We've got some news, and I think I'm going to jump out with the news first, and then I'll let you with the rest of the news. But I've got some exciting news. Bishop Peterson has now joined and has been incarnated within the church which I am a member of, the Oriental Apostolic Church of Damkar. She has been appointed as an archbishop and also as a primate within her own right, as well as auxiliary primate of the Western Rite. And we welcome her and support her in her ministries, as well as looking forward to a very, very long relationship with her. Personally, I've worked with Bishop Peterson for many years. We used to work in the same church together many years ago. I don't even want to think about that now. It's been a long time, but it is definitely a pleasure to be working with you again, my dear sister, and I'm very happy to have you on board in the OACD.
It is an honor and a privilege, and I am so thrilled to be working with these brothers. And so, yes, it's wonderful to work with you too, Bishop Canterbury. Before we get too deeply into all this, there is a couple of other pieces of news.
Absolutely.
Voices of Modern Gnosticism is a panel discussion that's going to be taking place in the Boston area this weekend, November 8th. Our own Father Tony is going to be on that panel, and it's going to be just, I think, a wonderful opportunity to talk to some voices of modern Gnosticism. If you're interested, you can go to www.moderngnosticism.org and get all the details. I believe that St. Sarah's Parish of the Jonite Church is co-sponsoring this event, and there will be an opportunity to go to Mass as well. So if you're interested, do check out that website, and I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely awesome program. Also on this Saturday, I will be appearing as a guest on Magic Radio, which is a local program here in Chicago. It's going to start at 4 p.m. and Chicago listeners can tune into 1680 a.m. And it's also going to be live streamed and archived at QUE4.org. So Q4.org. And the topic is going to be finding and working with a magical teacher. I will be joined by my very dear friend, Catherine Diedrich of Quadrivium Oils. She's been a guest on Talk Gnosis, and she and I have been around for a while, so I think it's going to be an awesome show. So please do tune in if you care to do so.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great thing. In fact, both these things I wish I had an opportunity to be able to participate with. Both listening, I'll definitely have to see it when it's archived and listen to it. And definitely this modern Gnosticism panel discussion with Father Tony. We were discussing it before the show. I would definitely love to be in that audience.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
You know, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Again, we ask for your feedback on social media, on our Facebook page, as well as here on YouTube. You can always write us at talkgnosis@gnosticnyc.com. And we thank you very much, and we will see you next week, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
This has been a production of the Gnostic NYC Network. For more information about this and all of the Gnostic NYC Network's programming, visit GnosticNYC.com. The opinions expressed in this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Gnostic NYC or any other organization. This show has been released under a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License.